Prepare yourself for the ultimate gaming experience. April 5th through the 7th, the Midwest Gaming Classic returns to the Baird Center in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dive into a vast world spanning over 250,000 square feet, showcasing the latest modern and retro game consoles, pinball machines, arcade games, tabletop, and so much more. Meet industry professionals, join engaging live panels, and explore the expansive vendor hall, the largest of its kind. Best of all, kids 9 and under are free. Grab your tickets online at MidwestGamingClassic.com or at the Baird Center. Welcome to the next level.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Midwest Gaming Classic podcast. I'm your host, Jason Gares, panel director of the Midwest Gaming Classic. It's hard to encapsulate what Harold Johnson has done for tabletop games. He copy-edited the original Dungeon Master's Guide, developed multiple D&D tournament modules, was the director of games research and development at TSR, worked on the design team for DragonLance, Forgotten Realms, Spelljammer, and Ravenloft, and continues to this day with Return to Tamoanchan. He was also influential in GenCon's move to Milwaukee. Learn about all this and so much more in this week's podcast panel. And after the panel, watch me play Dungeons & Dragons Chronicles of Mystara from my Steam library. You know what? Enough of me talking. Let's get to the panel with Harold Johnson.
My name's Harold Johnson. Have you heard of me before? No. Yeah, well, my brother here, Mark Johnson, no relation. I actually DM for him, so that's how he knows me. Okay, I'm Harold Johnson. I'm very old. I just had my birthday on March 9th. Thank you for the belated birthday greetings. And I've been in the gaming industry since 1979, kind of unofficially since 1976, when I discovered Dungeons & Dragons and went to the very first convention that was run called GenCon. It was their 9th year, but in fact, it was the first year that TSR, the company that published the game Dungeons & Dragons, actually ran the convention. And when I went to that convention, do you know what I did? I criticized it. I told them, this is a terrible tournament. I can do much better. And they said, you think you can? Yeah. You want to run a tournament? Okay, I've shot off my mouth. I guess the answer is yes, I'll do one next year. No, not next year, now. We have a lot of gamers and we don't have opportunity to play. And if you could run something, we'll get you the gamers, we'll get you prizes, we'll get you a table and chairs to sit at. And I agreed, and it was the last game running at GenCon 9 with all of these people sitting around watching me stand up in front of everybody. And what are you doing? And the giant statue is approaching you, and a little transparent demon in its belly is laughing at you. It was a strange game. No, we're not going to go into it. So, since 1976, been doing conventions. 1975 is when I discovered Dungeons & Dragons. How many people know of Dungeons & Dragons, the game that changed the world? I got a few people. She's sitting over here going, what? I appreciate it, though. Dungeons & Dragons, before Dungeons & Dragons, before there was a GenCon, there was Pong. There was Space Invaders, Space Wars. But they were very boring games, video games. But after Dungeons & Dragons, you see a transformation in gaming. You see the arrival of adventure gaming. You see the arrival of game systems, Atari 2600, we played on a Trash 80, as we referred to the Radio Shack system. and eventually in television, and then many years later, Nintendo. Who still has a first edition Nintendo? Who has their game still? They do. Good for you. There's actually somebody here who's programmed a game, Bovinsky or something, that you can get here, and it's programmed on the NES system. So you can get it right here. It's brand new. That's one of the advantages to this convention. You have people looking at the past and still using that technology and advancing it. So, 1975, learned the game. 1976, started playing with conventions. By 1982, I was in charge of the biggest game convention in Milwaukee, in the States. It was called GenCon. And GenCon's known for role-playing, but also board games, miniatures. We moved here to Milwaukee in 1984, and I was associated with the show for 10 years, though still to this day, and we've just celebrated our 51st year of GenCon, which now takes place in Indianapolis. I have been part of the staff in one capacity or another, from volunteers to running the show to going back to volunteer. We do a charity auction, so you should come down to GenCon too. But a lot of our conventions, a lot of the foundation of gaming conventions centers around what GenCon did and how it changed the world, just like the game did. So I've now told you we have Dungeons & Dragons, the game that changed the world, and I told you GenCon is also changed the way conventions were done. What you don't necessarily realize is that the two of them are interrelated. If there was no GenCon, there would be no Dungeons & Dragons. If there was no Dungeons & Dragons, we wouldn't have seen the major revolution when we did in video games. Now, how's that possible? Well, it turns out that GenCon, which started up in Lake Geneva, that's where the name GenCon comes from, actually was a meeting ground for gamers out of an axis of Chicago, Milwaukee, and the Twin Cities. And they got together in Lake Geneva and played. And it was at GenCon that the principals who would create Dungeons & Dragons, Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax, got to know each other. And how that then became the forum for any new game. If you wanted to release a new game, you went to GenCon. That's where you premiered it. If you wanted to, Magic the Gathering, the card game. How many people have played Magic the Gathering? So few. Okay, let's try another one they do. Pokemon. I'm proud of you, Mark. He's not a card game sellout. Anyway, in fact, it became the standard that at GenCon, fortuitously, you would meet other business partners, people who were going to become your business partners, you were inspired to do something new, and you would do new games, or you would do a new company, and you would definitely feature your new releases when it came time to publish for the first time. So, there's the background. Let's talk specifics. How many people were born before 2020? Okay, keep your hands up. How many people were born? What?
It requires math.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. How many people were born before 2010? 2000? 1990. Ooh, some dropping down. I love people in 1990 who say, I've been playing games all my life. And I think, yeah, your life is very short, buddy. 1980. Oh, my goodness. And I won't embarrass anybody beyond that. So that means you guys probably all witnessed the transformation. All right, let's do this. I want the people in 1980 to tell me, somebody, raise your hand, what was the first video game you remember playing? Pong! We're talking 1970. All right. That would have been Pong. Early 70, like 71, I believe. 1971. Okay. Somebody from the 1990s. What was the first video game you played? Anybody? Yes. Which one? Space Invaders. I like Gauntlet, too. That's a good one. Oh, now they're debating back there. Adventure! One of the first adventure games. Very good. Okay. 2000. What was your first video game? 2000. Anybody born before 2000? You remember anything different? No? Yes, way back there. There you go. That's okay. Don't be embarrassed. You know, I have been hearing arcade games, and I've been hearing home entertainment games. Okay, we are in 2010. I expect to start hearing some apps. Okay, so those who were alive in 2010, what was your first video game that you played? Nobody? Who's played Candy Crush? Anybody? Well, my wife plays it all the time. It's like you can't talk to her. She's always doing this. Candy Crush. Good grief. All right. My first game ever was Pong. I did play Pong. I go back that far. I go back to analog computers. If anybody has seen the big analog computers where you would put everything in your program, was a deck of punch cards. You didn't use magnetic tapes. Well, we did to back it up. It was the punch cards. You had to have them in order. And it was thousands of cards. And none of you guys remember that, do you? You're all much well. Here's a gentleman who does.
I remember punch boards.
Punch boards.
The boards you wired.
Yes. Oh, yes, I remember that too. Well, I go back even before then. In 1960s, I was in high school, so I'm kind of revealing my age, and we were Star Trek fans, so late 60s. And I was taking lots of major courses in high school because in that case you could specialize in something, or you could go and do sports or music. I specialized. And I took a course in logic, but I had to audit it because I had taken all the courses I could take. So we did games of logic. But back then we had this, I want to call it a calculator. It looked like a typewriter on a stand, but it was a big calculator. And what? Yes. And we played a game of battleships that we designed ourselves, which was point to point, represented the ships, and we would draw an island, and we knew that we didn't have line of sight if we crossed the island from point to point. And then we would have to estimate the distance and put in our estimate, and it would calculate how close we were to the actual measurement. And if we were 0.01, that was one hit. And if it was 0.001, that was two hits. And 0.000001, did I just say 5 times? I think I did. That was 5 hits. And that's how the system worked. And this was my experience, my first experience with electronic gaming. We were making up our own game. So I'm certainly revealing a truth that's a little embarrassing because I had a science club. I was his chestnut, and I played science. You know what my goal is one day in life, and I don't know if you guys are just gamers or frustrated game designers like this one. I want to design the next chess, the next checkers, the next Monopoly, the thing that you may not remember I designed it, but it becomes a staple for the family. I really want to do that. Someday I will succeed or not. But we will have fun getting there. I can't tell you the number of unfinished rules I have in different places. Anyway, so here we are designing, being a science club. I was going to build a laser, by the way. Bought a laser tube. Anyway, we started playing games, and we played miniature games. And miniature games translate well to a computer format because it's point-to-point combat. And the computer, in those days, our biggest experience with the computer was a Hewlett-Packard calculator that cost you like $900 for this scientific calculator. And you could program it. You would program on a little magnetic strip that you could insert into it. And so we had the basis for games. And of course, we didn't pay $900. We'd get together and we were smart and we'd do a group buy, a whole case of Hewlett-Packards, and everybody would get their calculator for $600. But that was our next step. We went from these desktop calculator to the Hewlett-Packard. And then Pong came out. And we sat there and went, well, that's interesting. I guess it's like hearing the air hockey out in the hallway. It's kind of like, that's interesting and okay, but a little boring. Now, they did do some interesting, faster ones. How many know Breakout? Have you heard of Breakout? Breakout, what a great game. And it's Pong. And then you got sticky balls. Remember the ball would stick to your paddle and you could shoot it off? That was great. I love that option. So we had Pong, and Pong came along. And in the early starts, this would be the early 70s, we had Pong and Breakout, and that was our first generation of home entertainment. You also saw it appear as video games in parlors, in pinball parlors. Up to that point, we all played pinball games because that's what we had. In 1978 to 1982, we started to see what we would call mainframe games. Nowadays, we would call it mini computers. Did you know that the PCs are really microcomputers? A mini computer was about the size of a desk. And we started to see games appear on mainframes, and eventually then we moved into the home entertainment system. Atari, who actually released Pong, did Atari 2600, and they started doing a lot of adventure games. Apple did a lot of games, but it was because they had an open license. You could write for Apple, and as long as you met the terms of their open license, you could advertise on your game that it was compatible with the Apple game system. And PCs were not done. Nobody was writing for PCs. They were writing for Apple because it was a high graphics computer, and they kept forging ahead. I still have PowerPC Apples at my house. Well, 26 of them I actually have. And they are functioning, and I can use them to this day because Microsoft did a Apple-compatible version of Microsoft Office. So I can use a lot of stuff right on there. I don't obviously have all the graphics powers, but early on, the Apple system was the game system of the world. And in England and Europe, it was the Commodore. Everybody was playing on the Commodore, though it never hit big here. We had some Commodores. I played on Commodores back then, but it never hit really big. It was considered that in the late 70s and early 80s, we had reached the golden age of early home entertainment games because we got to see the development of the Intellivision. Now, those who don't know, and I think that's probably almost everybody in the world, Intellivision was the first format that we used that had the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons game on it. And we had signed an exclusive license for 10 years with Intellivision. We could not be on any other platform for those 10 years. And Intellivision went away. So that's not a good thing. And that helped the rest of the industry grow leaps and bounds ahead of D&D because we were not developing D&D games during that time. But now we're going to put on the brakes a moment and we're going to go back to the past of the 1970s. In the 1970s, in the University of Illinois, there was a system called Plato. How many have heard of Plato? Okay. How many have the guilty pleasure of having ever played on the Plato system? And was it the amber screens? Or was it the green screens? Mine was amber. Did you have a gray screen? Which one was it? Gray screen. Okay, later development. They had the amber screens. Now, Plato was an intranet. It was all hardwired, but it was across the nation. All these universities had terminals for Plato. I went to Northwestern in Evanston. I was born in Evanston. And the Plato system, we had one. We had one in all of Northwestern. And let me tell you, even after I graduated, we would sneak into the room that had the Plato system, and we would play the games for hours. And we knew when security would come by at 5 in the morning, we'd lock the door, and we would hide under the desk. This is college-age students, guys. But they were pretty intense. Plato was a platform that revolutionized, that drew the map for the future of the internet, for the future, a lot of things that we take for granted nowadays. Forums, blogs, email, data sharing, data packets, were all you'll find in early Plato. But something else we had. This is in the 1970s. Did you know Plato had touch screens? You knew it had touch screens because you played on it. Plato had plasma feeds that streamed across the screen in an XY grid. And you could interrupt it by touching your finger there. And the detector here would say, well, he's in this row and in this column. So we actually had a touch screen in the 1970s, which was not replaced with touch screens till the late 1990s, early 2000s. So this was really a prototype of where we would be today, and we wouldn't be there without the Plato system. But the other thing that Plato did was it gave us gamers, frustrated gamers, a platform on which to invent our games. And a lot of the people actually started, the author of Ultima started programming on Plato and writing games for Plato. I, of course, had come around in 75. It had to be when I first knew D&D. So in 75, 76, I discovered Plato already has a variety of Dungeons and Dragons types of adventures. There's Orthanc, there's D&D, Batten, Oubliette. All these games, Telengard, all started as games projects designed by students. And later we would see that evolution into adventure game market and the way you see it nowadays. It started actually on Plato. So I don't know how many of you have those kind of guilty pleasures of telling about times you played forever. Gauntlet, do you remember Gauntlet, the first multiplayer game there? You got to play 4 people at an arcade?
I mostly played an airplane game. Dogfight with other players.
Oh, yes. One of the second games that was published out there was Empire, which was a Star Trek knockoff. You see the Enterprise on the main screen, and it was on the Plato system, and it was point to point. I was telling somebody the other day, today, that I would get into the game, and it was actually a multiplayer game. You play with other people all across the nation who had Plato computers, Plato terminals. And I'd go in to play what later became known as Strek, but it was called Empire at the time. And you go in and you play, you get a ship, and you're Romulan or Klingon or Federation, and it had vector drift. So you start your ship one way, and you start to turn, and the ship keeps going in that direction until you fire your engine so you correct your vector. I get into that game, and the people who've been playing for weeks, months, years were waiting for people like me to shoot me down. And I kind of think that that's my role in all these new games, first-person shoot 'em up. It's, Harold, you got to play with us. Why? Because you want to kill me? Because that's all that I've got to get? I'll be sitting there going, how does this control? Oh, darn. Dead again. Well, now what if darn. Where did that guy come from? That's a lot of my experience on the early shoot 'em up games. I was much more happy with adventure games where I could not open the door to a room and not encounter a monster or trap or whatever. The early adventures used actual type symbols for their dungeon. D&D walls were made up out of hashtags. Their doors said D. They were D for door. The secret door, when you found it, was replaced with an S, so you would know there was a secret door. The monsters appeared as a number, so you had 1 through 9, so you could have up to 9 monsters, and they actually moved around the screen and came in to attack you. People, I don't remember exactly how my person was. I know that Ultima and several of the predecessors to Ultima actually did a little man icon. But in the original days, I think it was an asterisk. I think I walked around with an asterisk, and that was where I was. That was the start of games, and so when I saw games like that, I was really, really impressed. And then we started to market those games. Telengard came out for the Atari, and you could actually put a CD in, and that was great. My experience with the growth of games isn't all that great. When I joined TSR in '79, I became responsible for the computer department, computer games. How many know of our original 3 games that we published from TSR? Labyrinth, the Theseus and the Minotaur, Fight in the Skies, and Dungeon, the board game. And those were the ones that we had, with some animation. But in those days, nowadays, arcade, you go like this, and the room just changes, and it's beautiful, and you look up, and you look down, and it's just real time. It's changing. It's moving that fast. In those days, if you turn to the right, you'd say, go to the right. The screen would redraw what you see. Go to the right. It would redraw the entire screen. Go to the right. It didn't just slide over. And there was an outline that said, here's the top of the wall, here's the bottom of the wall, but no textures on the wall, nothing. It was just black. The most color was on the monsters and the creatures and the challenges, and you'd see those in color, and then we might overlay an effect like a lightning bolt or a fireball, which would just wipe onto the screen and then wipe off the screen. It was that simple. Nowadays, it's how do we go from stick figures to wire drawing and textures and walls and live streaming and moving of the art. It's an incredible change, and people like this young woman back there is probably laughing because she's never seen any of these stick drawings. But we did do these 3 games. I can't say they were great successes. We had to fight with the company because they wanted me to design it for the Trash 80 on an 8-bit system on a tape, a little digital tape. And I was like, oh gosh, guys, we're in the 20th century. Now it's the 21st, but it was 20th then. And we were trying to talk them. We had to beg them to let us do a 64 CD, because they didn't want us to do CDs, because Brian Bloom was a fan of the Trash 80. He had a copy. So I'm jumping all around, and I haven't given you any time for questions. And maybe I'll take a break here and see just if there are any questions. Questions, conclusions, answers, breaks? Anybody? You want to talk about anything? Nope. Yes?
When did you stop doing the game design?
When did I stop doing game design for
TSR? I'm wondering, because there were the gold box games a few years later.
What we did was, in 1984, we went through a near bankruptcy. And we had to shut down a number of departments. And I was the VP of games, and I had to make a decision. So we were going nowhere with computer games. So in 1984, we shut down the computer game department. And then we started looking for licensees, but we still had to wait out the 10-year license within television before we could which was Mattel, before we could actually pursue other platforms. We started talking with a number of companies early on, and we had SSI come in, and we talked with SSI in the mid-'80s, and we talked with EA. EA had the Electronic Arts. They had the distribution, and they had the money, but SSI had the passion. And we're going, oh, wow, we'd love to go with SSI because we would be their star. EA, we would just be another notch on their belt. And we might not see the attention that we wanted to see. And then the powers that be, the marketing gods, got together with EA and SSI and got them together, and they came back with a deal where SSI would become the design arm that would do our games, and EA would do the sales and distribution. So that was late 80s when we did that. And then you started to see the wonderful gold games, Heroes of the Lance, Pool of Radiance, Eye of the Beholder 1, 2, and 3. And just so you know, in Eye of the Beholder 3, they brought it back and they said, well, they hired professionals to do the voiceovers of the monsters and so on in this game, and we think they're terrible. They called me in, and I've been a professional entertainer since 1972, and a voice talent. And they said, do you think we can do better? I said, absolutely. So they rented a studio, and we did all the new voices for Eye of the Beholder 3. The Lich is my voice. The Beholder is my voice. And that was the Beholder. Of course, we put bass into it and reverb and stuff, but I directed it, and so there's a little fact nobody knows. TSR actually did the voiceovers for those. But we did the gold games then. And then after that, we got ourselves sold to Wizards of the Coast. And Wizards of the Coast picked up the mantle, and eventually in the 2000s, once we crossed the century, we now have D&D Online. How many people play D&D Online? Nobody. Two. Me. Also 3. So 3. There are a lot of multi-user adventures out there. Back in the 80s, we started to see quite a number of MUDs, multi-user dungeons. And there was a lot of talk about this being a new thing that you could do online. We were seeing a lot of Fantasy 4 and Fantasy 5 games. A lot of people were doing foreign market games and bringing them into the States. They were happening in England, they were happening in Germany, and they were being brought into the States. And Japan. Japan re-pioneered the entertainment system with Nintendo and some of the other systems that are out there nowadays. But a lot of gaming evolved thanks to the Japan influence. What's it called? JRPG, I think. All right, other questions? No? How many do online gaming? Yes.
Do you have any good stories of the early GenCons, and how did it start? who originated it and what was the story behind the whole thing?
Oh, well, okay, sure. Early GenCon started, and remember we're talking GenCon because GenCon is the birthplace of the game companies. And then the game companies eventually birth D&D, which evolves and changes electronic gaming for us. Dungeons & Dragons didn't exist when GenCon first came into being. Gary Gygax was a gamer, mostly a miniaturist. He played a lot of miniature warfare games, and he decided that he wanted to run a gaming weekend at his house. And in 1967, he invited about 20 people, including I think he was a 12-year-old boy from South Bend, Indiana, whose parents drove him over there so he could be in Lake Geneva and play the game. His name is John Pickens. And he actually was well accepted by the adults, who were easily 20 years older than him. But in those days, you know how we emailed everybody, right? That stamp on there and mail. Before there were blogs, there were forums. We would print, there was alarms and excursions, and we would print a series of letters so you could follow the track of the conversation, and this would be a newsletter that would be mailed out to each other. So we were already doing things that later the internet would make a lot faster, but a lot more wordy. So 1967 is the creation of the game, of the convention. In 1968, they actually started doing it as an event run by the local game club out of the library, referred to as the Castle and Crusade Society. And that's where GenCon started. My early stories are mostly of the impossible. When people would say to me, it can't be done, I would say, don't tell me that. I went in, when we were doing GenCon in the old Mecca building here, and I took over, we had long lines. They'd go out around the block and down, and then we'd have pouring rain. Either it was very hot or pouring rain. And I took over and I said, I don't like these long crowds. We got to get them in earlier. Let's start on Wednesday. You can register on Wednesday so you don't have to stand in line on Thursday, and you can get to game right away. So we did that. And people got in, and they got into the gaming halls, and I thought this was great. And then my critics said, I see the show is pretty dead. What do you mean the show is pretty dead? I had more people than we've ever had. I had 13,000 people. We used to have 8,400. I had 13,000. What do you mean it's dead? Well, we drove by. There were no long lines. There was nobody in the hallway. And I have to say, okay, I got to rethink this. It is nice that there's no long lines, and I'm sure you as customers appreciate lines now that you registered this morning. How many walked in and actually got their badge this morning and stood in those long lines? Well, some of you understand the agony. How many came earlier yesterday and got your badge? See, pray, smart new world. One of the things I was doing with D&D, or with the GenCon, was to say, as a attendee, as a gamer myself, what do I want? What do I need to enjoy myself even more? And so we would change GenCon that way. I had never run a convention this big, but I have run conventions for 46 years. I'm going to tell you a secret that very few people know. When I say I was an entertainer, I was a voice talent. But I was also, for 8 years, a professional puppeteer. And I became the youngest president of the Puppetry Guild at age 18. And I was asked to run the convention for our state. And I said, what do I know? I'm 18 years old. I don't know how to run a convention. So now here I am doing GenCon, and it's huge. And I always approach any problem with a simile. What do I like that's happening out there that I can adapt? And in this case, it was a little thing called Disneyland. I love Disneyland. And those who have been to Disneyland know there's a Frontierland, there's an Adventureland, there's Tomorrowland. And I said, maybe that's what we need to do. We need to do a role-playing hall where it's all role-playing games, and a miniature hall where it's all miniature war games, and a board game hall. And we'll focus on those as a specific, focus of that, all the events in there. And you'd walk in and you'd be in seventh heaven if you were a board gamer, or if you were a miniature player, or so on. So we did divide it up. And now if you go to GenCon, you see the same thing, but it's more by company. You have the Games Workshop room. You have the True Living Dungeon room. I don't know if you've seen Living Dungeon. It actually has you playing and walking through in costume through a model dungeon. And they usually have a great monster at the end that is an animatronic. One year they did a hill giant who stood about, I want to say 12 feet tall. Well, he was sitting. And they actually had it at the 50-year anniversary. I hadn't seen it before. It's Disney quality. It's beautiful stuff. So those are part of the early stories, yes.
That's good. But do you think where gaming's going, is LARP going to take off?
Is what?
LARP, live action role playing?
You know, LARP is actually not all that new. LARPing, I went to a convention as a host and guest in the 1990s in Australia, and they were already playing something called Freeform. And Freeform was LARPing. And they'd been doing it internationally in the 90s when I was running a convention called Twin Cons in the Twin Cities. One of my features was LARPing. So I think that LARPing is something that is here and has been here. Will it take off? Probably not in the sense that you understand it, but it could evolve. It could evolve. I think what we're going to see in gaming, and we've seen it in role-playing, is a marrying of technology with paper gaming. A lot of people said to me in the early 2000s, where do you see the future of gaming? Write us an article on the future of gaming. And I wrote an article. And what it basically says is, I'm not worried about electronic format. They were saying print is dead. Everybody's just going to download PDFs. There's no risk. You don't have to have inventory. You can just shoot a PDF over. And I said, why would you do that? You can't share it with anybody. It's not the social thing that gaming is all about. What you're going to do, I think, and I said this, as I say, 2003, is we're going to see that media will become part and integrated in paper gaming. And I'm proud to tell you that right now you can see some of it. The company I'm working with right now is Epic Quest Productions, and second company, Epic Quest Publishing. You can go online and type in roll20.com. And we have adventures that are using an online virtual reality. All the maps are created. It has animations. It has music. It has sound effects. And this is what we're seeing as the future of board gaming and role-playing, is a meshing of electronic and virtual media as an adjunct. Sound effects, music. I'd love to have music during, I want a mood. We're going to see all sorts of interesting transitions, and that seems to be exactly what's happening. Was there another question? We have 1 minute. One question. No? Yes.
Quick blurb highlight of your experience with
DragonLance. DragonLance is a transformative game that when it was created, from the day it was created, it was always seen as a multi-platform game, and I don't just mean computer games. We did paper games, we did board games, we did miniature games, we did war games, we did novels for the first time, and we became the biggest publisher of fantasy and science fiction novels in the nation. We did jewelry, we did posters, we did music. In the very first adventure, we created music. And it was something that we wanted to do, which was to comic books. We wanted to show that role-playing processes all these genres. And, of course, we did computer games. We did electronic games. We've done movies. If you haven't seen it, there's an animated movie out there from Nelvana. So I think DragonLance created a model for the future of gaming. Thank you for coming.
All right, well, we're here playing Dungeons & Dragons Chronicles of Mystara, and if you're not aware, there were 2 video games that were put out in the arcades by D&D and Capcom. So why don't we get into it? Alright, we're going to play Tower of Doom because I started playing Shadow over Mystara, and I have 44% of treasures found. So why don't we just go into Tower of Doom where I haven't played that before? Let's go, well, with the adventure begins. Your journey to defeat the evil Deimos begins. Let's go with Apprentice. And here you go. This is what it looked like in the arcade. I do remember seeing this cabinet. It's pretty cool because you can have 4 players at the same time. So who do I get to pick here? Dwarf, Cleric, Fighter, and Elf. I'm going to go with the Fighter. Enter my name. Oh, I wonder if I can get out of this cabinet mode, because this is pretty small. Hold on a second here. Let's go to options. Cabinet mode. Normal, there we go. Oh, look at that. You can either play left screen or right screen. That's kind of neat. Yeah, that's a little too small there. Let's see. I guess we'll go with normal. All right. Got my trusty Xbox controller hooked up to my PC. What do we got here? Oh. How do I pick that up? Oil. Oh, look at that. Oh, there we go. The A and B button to pick up. wouldn't help us. Please. Wow, this goes by like really quick. I didn't even touch any buttons. What should we do? Head to the mountains after the monsters? Head to town. Yeah, let's go to do some fighting. Find a cave that will lead you to the heart of the mountain. Ominous roar bellows from deep inside. Tracks lead to the cave. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Ooh, booby trapped. I got out of there quick. Whoa. This kind of almost reminds me of a better version of the hack and slash from Sega. It'll come to me. Golden Axe. Golden Axe, that's it. It's like a bit over, little bit of a better version of Golden Axe. Oh, I didn't know you could pick that up. Money bags, pick up 10,000 SP. Oh, I'm almost close to that. I have 9,400. Loot Master, open, unlock, or break open 50 chests. Oh boy. Oh, here we go. Oh, of course he has help. Oh, booby trapped, of course. Ah! Of course I'm going to continue. Yeah, I defeated the leader. I think he ran off. Retrieve stolen caravan goods. Pretty good. Alright. I've leveled up. Let's see. I only have a little amount of time here. Yeah, take one of them. Oh, guess I can't get any more. Alright. I think that'll be it. Bye-bye, fair lady. Oh boy. Creature that's attacking Fort Kruth. Take the main road. Alright. Gotta be fast reader. Move to town, head for the city. Monsters prowl. Alright. More hack and slash fun. Can I do anything to the sign? Nope. It's a sign. I can't do anything to the sign. Oh, look at that. Just trying to pick up my money. Something back there though. An owl bear. I got him. Hear a moan from the tickets. That was more than a moan. That was a cry for help. Uh-oh. What happened here? Help us. As part of patrol. Hunting the beast, and we were attacked by it. Look at that. It went right through. What should we do? Hurry to the city and see if they can send help. Go to the fort. Try to save them. But, you know, let's go to Fort Cruz, huh? I'm going to try to save them all by myself. Set some traps for the monsters in the fort. Be sure to watch out for them. Yeah, I'm sure I'll probably go through some. By the power of Grayskull. Here we go. Oh boy. Is he drunk or dead? Nah. Haha, look at you. Ah, but there's more of them. Ah. Hyena. I think they're hyena men. Oh, he's calling more. Great. I'm gonna sneak up and get that axe. That's nice. I hit him with it. I'm going. Leave for the shadow where the creature truly is. I believe that's a hint. Oh boy, here we go. Oh, there's two of them. Well, that's fair. Oh! Yes, I shall continue. Ah! actually seems fair that they can attack me while off. Continue one more time here. It looks like I've continued 3 times so far in this game. Wow. 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 Like, I'm barely getting any hits in. There we go. I defeated the beast, but it took me like, what, 3 coins? Wow. So you're having dinner in the inn. A stranger comes up and begins to talk. My lord, master of the city, wishes to speak with you. He would have you come to the city of Athonos to meet with him. Reached 9th level. Max hit points will increase by 5 points. Awesome. Alright, so... Really? I can't carry any more daggers. No, looks like I only have, what, 11? Oh, well. I always try. Why not? Yep. Alright. Get to go on a ship. Oh boy, here we go. It's always good to have fire on a ship. Got him up against the wall, he had nowhere to go. Ooh, he's acrobatic. Aw, really? Alright, here's my 5th one. He's laughing and he thinks he kills me. Some booty. Well, I tried getting some. Well, I got most of it. I get half of it before I was attacked. These guys are pretty tough for not having any weapons. Oh, see? Gotta get all that stuff. I can't get that. Wow, I can't get that piece. I just like to jump. Yeah. Let's do a little Van Halen. I guess I can't go anywhere further. Hack and slash, baby. Hack and slash. Ah. Well, there's number 6. Oh, man, right away I get, like, knocked crazy. Oh, I was able to get one of those bags away. Oh, now I'm on fire. Ah! I sure didn't want to do that. But the game made me. Totally jumps out of the way of my arrows. Wow, really? I'm dead already. Oh. Of course he defended himself. Oh, it's not hammer time for me. He knocked it right out. Wow, he hit me with his butt right on my head. And he did it again. 3 times a turn with that, huh? Yeah, I got him. Oh, nope. Wow, he hits me 3 times? Wow. He hit me 3 times there and he had just a little bit of life left. Great. All right, looks like I got some help. Well, it took me almost 6 minutes to clear that. Alright, I've reached 10th level and max increased points by 2. It looks like I have 844 SP, huh? Why can't I don't know why I can't get the dagger. All right. Dragon's acid breath. Dissolve anything it touches. Well, 3-on-1, that's fair. Whoa. And I'm dead right away. That's great. I'm just like throwing away my oil. I'm not surprised I died there. Every time I think I get the dragon, I don't. Yeah, I annoyed it enough to fly away. Oh, I killed it. Oh, I'm actually surprised. Alright, I've reached 11th level and max hit points have increased by 2. The adventure continues. Alright. Of course. Oh! The Master of Puppets. Alright. Let's kick some monster butt. Oh wait, I'm a great heroes. Oh, well, let's go with the first one. I'm not going to take anything this time. Killer bugs. Jeez. Wow. It's like they're guaranteed to hit you. Alright. My 10th coin playing this. Jeez. Oh, I tried to get away from him too. Hey, really? Wow, I did not last long at all. Another ogre? Ugh. Wow, I got it. Wow. I kind of went back and forth on it like that. That was pretty quick. He's coming back. More. It's coin 11. All right. Oh, I can go in there. That oh. All right. Guess it's dead now. Whoa! And another troll. Wow. This would be like little. Let's see, $3.25 I've spent playing this game. Ah. Aha. Up, there we go. Got him again. I only have 2 of those left. Got him. Trying to pick stuff up, and here I am throwing away an arrow. Ah, there's another one. Who cares? $14 credits. Did I just get 14 credits? No, I've done 14 credits. Oh, man. Really getting beat up here. I'm surprised I survived that without having to continue. Wow. Oh, well that sucks. And that sucks even more. I'm gonna get hit by that thing again. I have a key. Humble yourself. Oh! Wow, that's cheap. Wow. 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 I feel like those were cheap shots right there. Wow. You've neutralized the trap. Nothing like getting killed by a scorpion. Whoa! Like you don't even know that that's there. Or that one. Like, what was the purpose of that room? Any traps in here? That was really easy. Watch, there's a trap here. Oh, look, something shiny. Whoa, whoa. Wow, I was even going back and forth on the controller. Man, is that a cheap... That's a cheap death. That was cheap. That was really cheap. Do you fools truly believe you have any chance of defeating me? Probably not. Or probably with a lot of quarters. I have no intelligence, so I'm just going to fight you. Wow, I actually got the first... Hibbidoo! I do. Whoa, come on now. Wow. Man. Of course, the dead are going to rise. Alright. I want to defeat this guy and then I'll be done. Wow. Wow. I tried to jump over him. Oh, he got me right in midair. Oh boy. So is he going to run away or do I keep going? Alright. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. We're going to fight or what? I gotta find him at a tower. By the power of Grayskull. I've driven off to Shadow Elf. 0 experience. Great. But I did level up to 12. Alright, I think this is where I'm going to stop. And that's it. There you go. That was the Harold Johnson panel from the 2019 Midwest Gaming Classic. We'd like to thank Harold Johnson for his continued support of the Midwest Gaming Classic, and we'd also like to thank you, our patrons and our customers, every year for coming in and making it one of the best live events in the Milwaukee area and one of the best conventions in the Milwaukee area. We greatly appreciate your patronage and your continued support. And with that said, that's the end of this podcast episode. I'd like to thank you for watching and or listening to the podcast every week. I greatly appreciate it. And with that said, take care, stay safe, and game on.
Join us for the official opening ceremonies. This is the Midwest Gaming Classic Showcase. Hear from industry professionals, game creators, and more. You'll also get an insight on what's happening all weekend long at the show. Hosted by Matt Isbell and Adam Milich, with a special opening performance by Brian Koenig. You don't want to miss the Midwest Gaming Classic Showcase, happening Friday, April 5th on the American Pinball Main Stage at 5 p.m. Central Time.